Welcome to the Mangrove Community, strengthening the community one branch at a time. For more information about the community or how to volunteer, please visit mangrovecommunity.org.
All right, how's everyone doing this evening? Welcome back to Reasonable Doubt. We have our lovely guest here, Dr. Plummer. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Great.
This is awesome.
Yep, thanks for coming out. So we have Dr. Plummer here. She's running for an at-large position.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about the at-large position.
So Houston is huge. We're approaching the third largest city
Mm-hmm.
in the nation. So what they've basically done is they have 5 at-large positions,
Okay.
and those positions are just below the mayor. And then you got district positions.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of ways, if you kind of think about it, you kind of need some folks to break the tie, right?
Gotcha.
So when your district representatives or council members make decisions, you've got 5 at-large members that can line up with those issues, understand them a bit better,
Right.
and to kind of make sure that there are 5 people that are representing the communities that don't really have a vested interest in a particular district.
Gotcha.
The goal is to kind of create some equity
Okay.
in a city when it comes to decision making.
Okay. So with that position, you don't cover a particular area?
Right. So we're running almost in the same way as a mayor would.
Gotcha.
We're running in every single incorporated area of Houston or Houston city limit.
Okay. And as far as the election process, how are you voted? How does the people vote for you?
Yeah, that's a great question because a lot of people don't really understand. Most people vote for the mayor and then kind of forget about everybody else.
Right.
Or they'll vote for the mayor and then they'll vote for their district
Right.
and then forget everyone else.
Right.
So what I always tell people is vote for your mayor, vote for your district, but then jump down to that large because you've got 5 positions down there that still have a huge say-so in what happens in your communities.
Right. So that's important to know. Thank you for that information.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. So give us a little background information about yourself. Are you from the Houston area? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school?
Yeah, definitely. So I wasn't born here, actually. I was actually born in Boston.
Okay.
My dad was in dental school at Harvard.
Gotcha.
And I was actually raised at Wellesley College for the first 3 years.
Oh,
My
wow.
mom was a room mother, and all the students were my
Okay,
babysitters.
hold on. So it's a room mother. So you got the stay-at-home moms,
Yeah.
but when you're in college, it's a room mother.
It's a room, yes,
Okay.
yes. So she kind of was. I think she had 15 or 20 young people. She's like an RA
Right.
on a hall,
Gotcha.
and we were broke.
Like most college students.
Exactly.
Right.
So mom was a room mother, and so all the college students kind of took care of me.
Cool.
And I went to school there. When my dad graduated, we moved to Houston. Now my family's originally from Houston.
Okay.
So we moved back to Houston, and of course,
All
did
right.
all things we were supposed to do here. My dad's a public health dentist, and so that's kind of why I became a dentist.
Okay.
So I'm second generation.
Gotcha. So, I mean, you it's like you didn't have an option. You were born in college.
Yeah.
So it's like you were groomed for birth. So back to the public health dentist. What is that title? Because I've never heard that title, public health dentist.
Oh God, it's the best practice of medicine. So you've got private sector and you got
Right.
public sector, right?
Okay.
So public is like your community health centers,
Okay.
Harris Health,
Gotcha.
the platform, so to speak, that takes care of people that really don't have access.
Gotcha.
And so I was kind of raised in that space. He did have a private practice, so I kind of feel like I've got the best of both worlds because I always saw him giving back.
Right.
And so that was really nice to be raised by someone like that. My grandfather was actually one of the first African-American judges in the state
wow.
of Texas.
Okay.
And so I saw him in the civil rights, fighting civil rights
Right.
movements. He was one of the people that desegregated the Harris County jail system, really active. And so my bloodline we have a lot of change makers going on.
Right. So very, very progressive. So,
Yes.
was he a judge in Houston, Harris County?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, Judge Matthew Plummer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I have to look him up.
yeah, please.
You know?
And one other really cool thing about him, he's actually a Tuskegee Airman instructor.
Oh, really?
So he was a part of the whole Red Tails.
Cool.
A lot of our listeners maybe know about those guys.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely sure they know about the Tuskegee Airmen, and
Yep.
just to hear that history and
Yeah.
where you come from, that has to be very motivating. And I guess that leads me to ask, is that where your drive and your passion comes from to run for a position like this?
So no, I just saw it kind of all growing up.
Mhm.
It was something that I was accustomed to seeing. And another nice piece of my background, which I feel makes this really special, is my mom is actually from East Africa.
Oh, really?
And so they met at the Peace Corps. So
Okay.
if you kind of hear the lineage of my family, they've always kind of reached back and pulled forward.
Gotcha.
And so that's always been something that I think has been instilled in me.
Mhm.
But actually, what got me involved with this political piece is I changed some legislation with the state of Texas.
Oh, really?
I did. So had a sad story happen to me. I actually lost legal custody of my son in a surrogacy case about 5 years ago.
Okay.
And it's a long story, but it was devastating. One of those situations that just kind of puts you on your back.
Right.
And you either stay there or you get up.
Mhm.
And that was that situation. And,
Gotcha.
and in those moments, you have to figure out what you're going to do very quickly, right? And so I was down for a second, I'll be
Gotcha.
honest. I have 3 other boys. I'm a mom of 3 boys,
Okay.
but I have 3 other boys that kept me lifted, honestly, between that and my faith.
Okay.
Obviously, my family as well.
Right.
But it was something that I had to make a very quick decision on how I was going to act.
Mhm.
And this is what I kind of really want our listeners to really to get a grasp of. Bad things can happen, but it's how you handle it and how
Right.
you turn it around
Right.
is what fixes it. So for a while, I just had to kind of work it out. Then I just one day woke up and I said, what would have changed my situation? Because his name is Alex. And so
Okay.
how would I have not lost him?
Okay.
And I literally wrote every single thing down on a piece of paper. And I
Right.
took it to a really dear friend of mine, Joe Desautel out of Beaumont.
Okay.
And I said, listen, I know you don't understand what really surrogacy may be necessarily or adoption rights may be, but I may not have been biologically linked to Alex, but that's my baby boy.
So, and just because I want to make sure we understand this, I
Sure.
just don't want to go over it.
Right.
So you had a surrogate mother that was holding your child for you?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
And then it sounds like they decided for some reason they had a change of heart and wanted to keep the child. Is
So so I went through menopause very early, a lot earlier than I anticipated. Decided to create our family with a surrogate. So the surrogate carried the child.
okay.
It wasn't biologically linked to me, but she carried the child.
Gotcha.
But in the state of Texas, you have to file paperwork to the state in a specific way. Otherwise, when the baby's actually born, the intended parent, which I am, I have no biological link to the child.
Right.
The intended parent would have rights.
Okay.
Well, my then husband didn't file anything with the state. So when he went in front of the judge to file for divorce, he didn't include Alex as a child of the marriage.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so he was literally legally stolen. So when
Wow.
I went to court thinking I was going to file custody, my lawyer basically leaned over and just said, you've got no rights. And when I read that legislation, it's almost like reading a chapter and reading a book and missing a chapter,
Right.
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Everything else was there, but like this piece. So what if you get a divorce
Right.
in all of this?
Right.
Like, where does the kid go?
Right.
And there was nothing that supported that or protected that child. And so I wrote the legislation. I passed it through the House unanimously the first time. We lost in the Senate. And this time, not even 3 weeks ago, we passed unanimously on the House and the Senate.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I guess that's important. And I guess I also want to ask, so where did Alex end up?
So he's with his father.
So he's with his father. Okay. Gotcha.
He's 5. He'll be 5 on August the 18th.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good to know, and congratulations on that.
Thank
and
you.
so how long was it before it wasn't passed to it was actually passed?
2 sessions.
2 sessions.
2 legislative sessions. Yes, so 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess that's an example that, things don't happen overnight.
Yes.
You have to take your wins and your losses. You win some battles, you lose some battles, but you ultimately won the war.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
great. That's
Exactly.
great.
And people also have to remember that like that bill doesn't change anything for me, right?
Right.
And so a lot of times when you intentionally want to do good things and you want to truly change things unselfishly,
Right.
you have to do it whether you've gained from it or not,
Yeah.
right?
Because you just want to make sure the next person didn't go through what you went through.
That pain, I wouldn't want anyone to have that or
Right.
to experience that. And so if we live our lives in that way, I feel like the things that we're seeing politically right now, we wouldn't see.
Right. Right. Well, cool. So I guess let's get into the politics of it. So if you were, what is your passion or what is your vision if you get in office? What things would you like to change? What's your agenda, I guess I'm asking?
So first thing we're going to do is we're going to say when I get in office.
When you get in office. All right.
Because we're going to put that into existence
Okay.
right now.
We're going to speak that into existence.
That's right. That's right. Words are very powerful.
Right.
So I'm a business owner. So practicing dentistry for 20 years. So economic empowerment and opportunities are huge.
Okay.
I'm an entrepreneur. I have had numerous companies wanting to purchase my practice.
Okay.
And I refuse to sell.
Right.
For a lot of reasons. One, I'm creating legacy for my kids. I've got 3 boys. They may not want to be dentists, but they can definitely be business owners. Right. So economic opportunity and is huge, probably one of my top things.
Right.
The second thing I would probably say would be, I would say community health. I have a public health background.
Okay.
I sit on the board with Harris Health. I actually sit on the board that that manages the dental clinics.
Okay.
So not directly with Harris Health,
Right.
but we manage the dental clinics within them.
Gotcha.
And so bringing access and access to our community health centers is something I'm really going to focus and champion. We don't have anyone doing that right now.
Right.
And I would say, it's hard to say 1, 2, 3, but infrastructure is a big deal.
Okay.
I mean, the area we're sitting in right now had flooding with Harvey,
Right.
and making sure infrastructure is in place.
Yep. Texas State flood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have to make sure that's handled. So if I were to pick, obviously they're huge. There are lots of different issues we'd focus on, but those are where my strong suits come in that order.
Gotcha. So with economic development and empowerment, how do you actually plan on implementing that?
Sure. So one thing I believe is we've got to get people to know that it's possible. A lot of Black and brown people just have forgotten or don't even think
Right.
that being able to move economically or financially is even an option for them,
True.
right?
Right.
And so when you lose belief, you don't do the things that you need to do to line that up.
Right.
And so we got to make sure we bring the information to the communities.
Right.
So what do they need to do? Communities, getting them back in school, helping them graduate from school, making sure that our community schools are funded the right way,
Right.
and make sure they have the tools that they need to thrive. And then, giving them the tools that they need to be entrepreneurs.
Right. So, but how do you make sure that the schools are funded the right way? Because that's a major issue that I see across the area. Especially when you touch into districts like HISD and things like that. The legacy that's been left behind is it's a stain on that whole area, and I know people who they were in when you go to Northeast Houston, you had North Forest ISD, which integrated into HISD
Right.
now, and they tell me the difference. And speaking to them and speaking to the children over there now, I can kind of see the difference because the passions are different in the older generations versus the younger generations, and it just seems like there are a lot of resources that are being manipulated and choked up when it comes to that area. So how do you really get your I guess, first to understand the problem, and then how do you go about, fixing the problem?
Well, someone needs to champion it, right? Somebody needs to not. As a lot of times we push things under a rug.
Right.
No one's really saying it's a problem.
Right.
Property taxes typically dictate what type of schools we have, and how great our roads are or homes in the area, and areas of people of color, like the area that we're sitting in right now. The property taxes are typically a bit lower, right? And so when that happens, you don't get the influx of financial support that you would typically need. And so we have to make sure that we level the playing field academically. Now, the city doesn't have a lot of control over what HISD does, right? That's a whole separate entity.
Right.
But we could definitely use the people that we know in our relationships to change that and make sure that the state money that comes down there goes a little bit more leveled
Right.
in terms of the areas. And one thing that we really need to look at is that, Can we change the ways in which our schools are funded based on where we live?
Right.
Okay, what we find right now is in the next 10, 15, 20 years, Black and brown people are going to be the majority minority.
I got you.
Okay?
Right. When you add the two together.
When you add the two together, we're going to be the majority population.
Right.
Okay. But more than half of us, less than half of us graduate from high school.
Right.
Okay. So what does the future look like if we're not getting an education? Those are going to be the next leaders in our communities. So we have to make sure we fund those schools, right? And we have to make sure that the neighborhoods around them are supported. We have to make sure banks are in our communities.
Right.
So the question is, the mayor talks about complete communities. I'm sure you've heard that
Yeah,
term
I've heard of
already,
it.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in my mind, complete communities, yeah, of course, building homes and building homes where affordable homes are there and accessible is important. But I look at things from a scientist perspective. Have you ever heard the Maslow hierarchy of needs?
I haven't.
Okay, basic needs. What do you need to live and thrive?
Okay.
You need shelter, you need security, you need food,
Yep.
right? You need
Right.
all the basic stuff. Most of our Black and brown communities don't even have that.
Right. They don't.
I mean, they're food deserts.
Yep.
They have to drive across town 20 or 30 minutes to get to a hospital. Bus transportation doesn't come into our areas. Safety is insanely high,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
I mean, there's so many basic needs that we don't have. So how do you expect us to thrive then?
Exactly. And that's I love to hear you speaking like that, because I don't see people focus on that part of it. Anyone I talk to that is running for a political position or anything, they name the big names: economic development, infrastructure, all the things that you name. But when you ask them to get into the details, it's still, well, we want to clean up the trash, we want to fix the roads, and which that's fine. Or we want to build parks to bring beautification to the area, but that's fine. But when you bring those parks and things like that in, it raises the property value, and the people are not able to catch up with the changing area. So
Right.
I love that you focus on that. Another thing with the schools, how do you feel about what's being taught in the schools? Do you feel like it's setting our children up to be successful? Because I don't feel we're not being taught how to manage money in school. All of the a lot of the vocational trainings have been taken out of the
At
schools
schools,
and
right.
things like that. So how do we encourage, and like you say, I know it'll come through relationships. How do we encourage them to get back to that in our schools?
Well, it just, because I come from a science background, look at everything from a cellular perspective, right? It goes back to knowing that we're powerful.
Right.
I mean, we are the highest voting bloc that exists. Every single person that's in office right now is there because of us.
Right.
But yet we don't do anything. We just sit back and let things happen. And I'm not holding people accountable for that. I just truly believe that we just don't think it's possible anymore.
Right.
And we have to kind of bring that hope back to communities. But if we come together and hold those schools accountable, but then how do we do that when mom is a single mom raising 3 or 4 kids
Right.
and is working 3 or 4 jobs? She can't make it to a meeting. She can't make it to a meeting with a counselor.
Right.
It's not because she doesn't care. It's because she's trying to take care of her family, put food on the table.
Right.
I'm going to give you a perfect example. My car got broken into about 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And my backpack was stolen. My computer was stolen, everything. And I'm with people that were pretty affluent, okay? I'm going to be honest with you.
Right.
It's a real talk conversation, right?
Right.
And they're talking about how could someone do that, and, how dare them. And I have been around the city now, and I've seen things I've never seen in my entire life before.
Right.
And I told them, I said, do you think that person broke in my car because he liked the hobby? He
Right.
probably took my stuff because he's taking care of a family.
Right.
I'm not justifying it.
Right.
I'm just saying that people become desperate and take desperate action. So instead of continuing to point blame on why people are making decisions, why don't we step back and fix the decisions they're making?
Right. Right. Because
If that's
it's psychological.
Thank you.
It's very psychological, and it hurts my heart when I hear, because I sit in a lot of meetings
Right.
with, like you say, affluent people, business owners that own multimillionaires and things like that, and the first thing out their mouth is always crime, and we need to fix crime, and they want to do it by increasing the police presence and things like that. So I make the connection that, okay, so your resolution is just to lock them up, which we're creating more single family homes.
That's right.
And we're just adding to the problem when these are multi-millionaire business owners that are talking like this. Your business needs landscaping, it needs cleaning and things like this, but you're hiring people from outside of the community versus within the community.
That's right.
So as a business owner, how do you, again, I know it comes through partnerships, and collaboration is a huge thing nowadays.
Right,
We have to learn how to collaborate across races, different races, cultures, religions, backgrounds, and things like that. So how do we get the more affluent people to understand that you can really assist with this problem in more ways than one than just trying to increase police presence and things like that?
No, sure. So, I believe a lot more people want to do good. I do believe that. Now, let's kind of use a low income area that's looking like gentrification is happening in. Let's kind of use that for example, if that's okay.
That's fine.
So a lot of people believe that gentrification is the reason why people are kind of moving out of areas. I kind of have a different twist on that.
Okay.
I believe that gentrification starts when our young people decide to leave.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So when you're in high school and you see the trash and the bad roads and the high crime, right?
Right.
And you sit in your room and you're like, I cannot wait to get out of this neighborhood.
Yep.
That's when it starts.
Yep.
Okay, so how do we change that narrative? So we give them opportunities, we change how the schools look, we make the environment safe, we give them good food to eat, right? We make sure they have the health care that they need to sustain them, okay? Now they're looking at an area, they're like, maybe I don't want to leave.
Yeah.
Okay?
Exactly.
That's the first step of it.
I agree.
Okay, now, if there are areas that do have to be regentrified and developers are coming in, that's when our civic clubs need to have some power behind them and say, no, listen, if you want to come in this area, we have a solid civic club membership. We've got some, we've got presence here, right?
Right.
Come in this area, but give us something. Put a community health center here.
Yep.
Put a senior living facility here for us. Put somewhere for our kids to go to make sure they can get tutored after school because mom is working 4 jobs right now.
Right.
Bring some grocery stores in here.
Yep.
If we're giving you land, then give us something back.
So it's
or
a
you can't
trade-off.
come here.
Yeah. Makes sense. And
You know what I'm saying? And then when you do, and I want you, but when you do come here, make sure you put retention in the area, and you make sure we don't now flood because you brought your big stuff in here, and you put more cement into place.
Yep. That's exactly what happened with this area.
I know it did. It happens everywhere.
Exxon, they backed Friendswood Development Company, and then the oil glut happened in the mid '80s. Exxon pulled out, which Exxon had plans to continue to develop the infrastructure, but when they pulled out, nobody cared about the infrastructure, but they kept building.
That's right, and we're Cement City now,
Yep.
right? So you hold those people accountable, and I believe in marches and pickets and all that kind of stuff. I'm telling you, if we're loud enough, you can stop anything from happening.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
We just have to make sure that I just don't feel that Black people know their power, and it just hurts my heart because we are so strong.
Yeah.
I just want us to know how powerful we are.
Yeah, but I think part of that is you have outside entities that continue to make you think that you're less than, feel like you're less than, like. And I try to stay away from it, but social media, you see so many interactions with the police officers and what seem like innocent victims, people with their hands up or behind their back, and they still get treated the way they get treated, and that just continues to make you feel powerless. So how do we get our police officers to better understand the communities that they serve?
Sure. So we have to increase diversity training. Okay. We've got to make sure we're coming from an offensive position versus a defensive position. When police typically walk in a scene, I think that they automatically think they're about to be harmed.
Right.
We need to teach them to come from a different place. And that's going to take money. It's going to take resource. But we want our communities, if they're thriving already, then that isn't going to be a problem anymore.
Right.
See, we're all talking about the stuff that's happening right now, but no one's looking at the root of the problem.
Right.
And the root of the problem isn't our police are having an issue. The root of the problem is that Black and brown people, Black people specifically, are not thriving. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I
And so we
understand.
have to help them thrive.
Right.
But they just don't think it's possible anymore. And a lot of us have given up. And I will say this. It is maybe easy for me to say because I've really been lucky.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be real honest with you,
Right.
and I'm not hiding behind that.
Right.
And I'm perfectly fine in my job. I love I'm a dentist. I do
Right.
I do well, right?
Right.
But I would tell you this, what I see in the community right now is absolutely unacceptable.
Right.
And I've got 3 black boys, right, that I worry about every single day. Just because I'm driving around a different part of town doesn't mean he doesn't have a video screen on his phone. And when he doesn't answer the call when I call him, I'm not worried.
Right. So you have the same issues.
I have the same issues as everyone else does.
Same worries.
He's driving around the city. I'm making sure his inspection's on point. I'm making sure his seatbelt is on. I'm making sure he's dressed appropriately. Why do I have to worry about that kind of stuff? You know what I'm saying? And so
understand.
we all deal with the same issues. But in saying all of that, it's the root of the problem. It is education. You asked me about schools. Taking science and math out of schools is a problem.
Yes.
But it's being done because the way to box us in. You know, science and math are cognitive skills that causes you to think. All right?
Outside of the box.
Outside of the box. And if you don't think outside of the box from that perspective, then how are you going to think outside of the box when you're out in the workplace?
Exactly. Yep. You're used to following orders. And
Exactly.
You're never thinking a way to advance yourself.
No. And there's in math, there's checks and balances.
Right.
If you don't get to the answer, there's something in the process that didn't happen right.
Right.
That life is the exact same way.
Yeah. Yep. Those are definitely tools that we need. And I wasn't aware that they're trying to take those out of school. I know they're changing the way that they teach math. And I feel like that's another thing where your parent can't help you with your homework.
No, of course
because we
not.
were not taught math the same way you were taught math.
Exactly. And they're at work.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but they're working like
Yep.
2 jobs. The average person is working 2 jobs to make ends meet.
Yeah. We definitely need to get back to that. It takes a village to raise a child, especially with the conditions that we're in now. I talked to a few people who changed my perspective on growing up without fathers or this, because they said that I had a whole community that fill that void for me, and that's wonderful. Another thing, being from the background that you're being from, you may have people that says, okay, you're not connected with the lower income communities. What do you have to say to that?
I don't feel like you have to be from a particular area to have compassion and understanding of why things aren't going the right way.
Right.
I believe that the reason why I was raised the way that I was, nobody got it just because they looked a specific way. I mean, my father worked at a chicken place and through newspapers, and we lived in a 3,000 square foot house until I went to college. You know what I'm saying? And so even though I was raised with opportunity, my parents kept us very, very grounded.
Gotcha.
The whole entire way. So in saying that, and I do believe a lot of people may say that, because I take care of people every day, there's a compassionate side of me that is just in my soul. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha.
It just is. And I don't feel bad for anyone. I want to make them better. Or make it better.
Yep.
There's no pity here. Right? We are a part of our circumstance. And that's people that live in these big houses, they're not happy either.
Exactly.
Okay, that's real. That's a real conversation.
It is.
Mental health crosses all lanes. It doesn't matter how much money you have in your account. Okay,
that's true.
And so I don't believe. I believe that the way that I was raised, honestly, is a strength. I don't apologize for it. I worked my tail off. Right.
And it's understandable.
Yeah. I mean, I was working in my dad's office when I was 12 years old. I didn't get to go out on the weekends. I didn't get paid for grades. That was expected of you.
Exactly.
And if we can kind of put those same pieces into our space in our families now and just give them a little bit of lift. Right? We can level this thing off.
Yep. I believe it. So with areas like Greens Point area, you have 48% of the residents make under $25,000. There aren't any health centers out here, public health centers, anything like that in this area. How do you bring the attention here? And I guess, let me put it like this. I've heard one of the mayoral candidates, they were talking at an event that they were at, and they were talking about the uptown tiers, the TIRZ, TERS, sorry. They were talking about the uptown TERS, and they have more money than they know what to do with. From a government perspective, is there a way to shift those funds to other areas? Is there conversations and negotiations that can be had to shift that money to low income areas? Then we also have opportunity zones, which when I was reading up on the opportunity zones, I feel like there are a lot of loopholes in there because you have the opportunity zone for the low income areas, but an area that's adjacent to it also becomes an opportunity zone. And the way Houston is set up is the low income area is always connected to an affluent area. So it's like if they draw the law that way, where if you're connected to an opportunity zone, then that gives you access to those same funds. And it seems like those areas always take advantage of that, and the low income areas still, they don't get the funding.
So let's kind of clarify. So you touched on a lot of different kind of things, right?
Right.
So let's go to opportunity zones.
Okay.
So poor people don't benefit from opportunity zones.
Okay.
Because the ones who win are the ones with cash and access to capital. They can go in and buy those areas and cultivate those areas. Okay. If you're still making $7.50 an hour, and they bring in an opportunity zone with all this, fancy food or restaurants or whatever, you can't go there and spend your money there, right? So what we need to do is we need to create real ones. Ones that actually benefit our areas. Okay. So those people that come in and make those investments, we got to get something from them.
Right. Like you said
And
before.
Exactly. They need to make sure they hire people that live in the area. If they're not qualified or trained, there needs to be some type of training program that they're trained to make sure they can work work in those areas.
Right.
Workforce needs, that we need a fund workforce to make sure that they get resumes and the technical training that we're talking about. They need to be able to hire, I believe, and maybe this is a reach, right? But if an opportunity zone comes into a low income area, there should be some percentage of hire from that direct community.
Definitely.
And that would be something that I would be able to push for. Okay. Then you talked about management districts. So management districts have to be decided on a state level. And I know that they've been talking about doing one here. The worry, though,
we have one.
Yeah.
We've had Northeastern Management District since 1991.
Yeah, well, not this particular, but I'm saying in other areas they're trying to build, they're trying to get other ones in certain areas. The issue that people have with management districts sometimes is that the business owners have to pay a tax or pay a fee.
Right.
And if those business owners are struggling, right, then they have a hard time to pay that fee.
Right.
But the idea behind it is getting lights, bringing safety, and bringing, good roads where people want to build their businesses there because now it's a nice environment to thrive in.
Okay. With that being said, lights. So it was brought to my attention by residents in a particular area that a high school was built on a road that didn't have any street lights. And you also have neighborhoods that are directly around the high school. So those neighborhoods don't have buses. So during the winter months, after school activities, these children are forced to walk home in the dark on a dark road with woods, and it's wooded area, so no telling what can come out the woods. Now, I reached out to the city, called 311, went through all the proper channels, made a request for lights, and I received documentation to fill out and turn in to, tell them about the area that I wanted to request the lights in. The first thing that caught my attention was they say they don't build lights for safety, for public safety, for anything like that. They don't put street lights in place for that. They put it in place for the drivers only. So that kind of, I didn't agree with that, because if you have a high school, you should have lights on that road, especially if you're going to have children walking down the street. You even have I guess they have FFA in the school, and they house animals. And God forbid when the animals get loose and it's dark and someone's riding down the street. Another thing, now this is what really wowed me. They said if there are the power lines, the wooden poles, if they had the wooden poles, they can connect lights to them, wouldn't be a problem. If they were not there and they had to install poles and lights, the person requesting the lights could be charged the fee.
Yes. Yeah. So these are ordinances that we need to kind of put in place when there's construction happening. We need to, like you said, if there's anything having to do with children, where children are going to be in an area that they are, they need to make sure that the streets are lit. But also about stoplights, stop signs. People get hit all the time because they don't have them. Parks that already exist don't have lights. So and I keep on saying they, but they're building these gorgeous parks all over the city.
Bike
but
trails.
We can't get lights. I just don't. There's a disconnect there.
It is. It's a disconnect.
I mean?
Just like with the bike trails, you have we see signs all through Greenspoint, northeast side of Houston, Acres Home, $6 million bike trail being built, and then you look around at the conditions and you're like,
Who's gonna ride their bike?
yeah. And then you
And
build.
who has a bike?
Who has a bike? And then you build the bike trail, no lights,
Right.
no trash cans.
That's right.
So you're creating more problems.
More problems. I'm telling you. Sometimes I feel. I think that politicians do what they think is best because that's what's in their head, instead of asking the communities what they need.
Right.
And my goal in this race is not to have all the answers. It's to ask the questions.
Gotcha.
And I'm just really trying to be a good listener and to really sit back. When I go to meetings, I don't sit in the front row. I sit all the way in the back and I have a notebook out and I'm listening to what's going on.
Gotcha.
Because in my own mind, my own narratives are going on based on my personal experiences. And like you said, I don't have a lot of the same experiences.
Right. But it sounds like, and I ask you that just for the people who question it.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you're very connected and you do understand the problems that are going on in these
because
communities.
I've been listening.
Right.
I really have been. And I've watched my family. I mean, everyone worked.
Right.
My grandmother worked, my
I worked hard to get where you were.
Yeah, that's wasn't easy.
And that, you would be a great example of how hard work pays off.
Yeah.
To where we all can get
Thank
to
you.
this point in life, by working hard and staying together as a family and pushing each other and encouraging each other and things like that. Because, in our community, when you get 18, you have to leave the house. And it's not because we just want you gone.
Right.
We really can't afford you. And
Right.
you can work and you can pay for yourself, especially if you don't want to go to school or work, then you can't lay up on us. We can't afford that for you. So
But in saying that, I'm gonna bring because I have that kind of that multicultural background.
Gotcha.
Asians don't kick everyone out.
They don't.
Stay in one
Right.
house. The 40 of them,
Right.
and they're not trying to go buy a fancy car.
Exactly.
And they don't try to go shopping and buy a $3,000 bag. They stay in the house, and they make sure they source enough money for one person to open up a gas station
Yep.
or a convenience store
Yep.
or whatever it may be. And when they're okay, then they scoot off, right?
Yep.
And they come back to the center again,
And
they
the next
refuel
person.
fuel, and they do another one.
Yep.
We have to understand that we need to do very much the same thing because it works.
It does.
Right, we're power in numbers, and if we can just take care of each other and support each other, and everybody chips in. Now, what's not going to happen is not going to lay on my couch all day
Exactly.
when I go work 2 jobs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. and okay, and I do want to back up on that because I think that's a twofold thing. You have some that just don't want to get up and do anything, but then you have some. I remember coming up in this area. If I filled out an application for a job in this area and I put this zip code that I lived in this zip code,
That's right.
I wasn't getting hired.
I know.
And it was so discouraging, during my high school years. And well, it wasn't necessarily my high school years. I was fortunate enough to work. My mom, again, got me on with where she was working at 16. So I was working since 16, but it wasn't until I came back from college. I didn't finish, so I came back, for whatever reasons. And then I started looking for work, and I noticed that. I'm like, it seems like anytime I put this zip code, they would look at the address and say, "Oh, so you're from the area?" Yeah, and I didn't see why that was always a question that was posed to me, and I wouldn't get hired, and I had the credentials. I graduated top 10% from my high school, class president, a little bit of college experience, and still no job. But that I think
That's social prejudice, though.
And that's something that goes back to what you said, that if the businesses come in this area, then they should agree to hire so many people. Like we have Coca-Cola coming in right now, and we had someone trying to negotiate on behalf of the community to make sure that they hire those people, and they're like, no, we already have our staff coming in.
But do you see what I'm saying? But we can have control over how that looks.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, we can really control that. And we need to give them an incentive on why it's better.
Right.
I mean, if you hire within the community, now people within the community want to take care of the community in which your business is in.
Right.
It's a win-win for everyone.
Yep.
And internships.
Yeah.
What about making sure that they have internships and programs for our young people?
Yep.
I mean, right now I do 6 young people, typically girls, just because I don't have any girls.
Okay. So that's where you make up for that. Gotcha.
Yeah, I just gotta, I gotta get my girl stuff going
Cool,
on, right?
cool.
So, but any girls that want to be in dentistry, and I do a
Okay.
6-week program for them.
Cool.
And they're typically from low-income areas. They don't have anyone to mentor them. And because I was really lucky and had someone to mentor me the whole time, I feel like that's kind of a way I give back.
That's great.
And 3 of them now are going to college,
Oh,
all
wow.
for their pre-dent, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I just told them, hurry and graduate and come take care of this practice.
Right. So you can step
It's all
away
set
a
up.
bit. Right. Hey, that's longevity.
Exactly. But my point is that if businesses were to agree to do the same thing, we really could change how this whole thing looks.
Right.
You know.
Yeah, I think you have a real good plan. I heard something about the rail coming through the northeast side of Houston, or the north side of Houston. Can you give us any information on that? Anything you may know, or what type of, do you see it as a good thing? Is it something that, because it will have to, a lot of places will have to be torn down, and is this something that you should let the people know ahead of time so they can prepare for it, or should we just wake up one day and we see all the construction here and people knocking on your door saying, hey, we want your house?
Yeah. So, this is the deal. So the rail is privately funded. And when things are privately funded, it's a whole different conversation. You don't have to follow the same rules as you do if you're paying for it, right? Tax-wise, right? So the rail is privately funded. It has been approved. I don't know where it's going to be specifically, but I do think that it's going to be somewhere in this area. I think it's going to be good, though. I think it's going to bring jobs to the area. I'm hoping that they will hire internally, and I think that they will. When I say internally, I mean within the community. I do know that a lot of really amazing people are on that board that want the best for the community.
Gotcha.
So I think I believe it's going to be a good thing.
Gotcha.
I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And and people are going to be able to commute back and forth between here and Dallas.
Gotcha. But so I'm trying to understand it more. It's privately funded, right? So how does it work? Do they buy up the land and the businesses and the properties along the way?
Yes.
So with that being said, it seems like the people do have a say so, because they can say, no, I don't want to sell this land, or I don't want to sell this property. Is that an option? Is that how that works? Or
yeah, I think that it's gonna happen regardless.
Right.
I do believe though that they're gonna do it the right way.
Gotcha.
I don't feel like they're just gonna kick people out of their homes. You know what I mean? They're gonna make it where there's a value there.
Right.
They're not gonna just push people out of there.
Gotcha.
and not compensate them in some way, or
Right.
make sure that they can take care of themselves. I'm excited because I feel like the community is really going down, and I feel like it will revitalize it in a good way.
Right. And I understand that, and I see that too. I see where it can be a good thing, because it will bring more business and things like that, like you say, if it's done the right way. But I guess just listening to you speak, you said, oh, there's nothing we can do about that because it's privately funded.
Well, not
But-
nothing. I mean, there probably are things that we can
Right.
do about it, but
Right.
it's just different when you're using tax dollars,
Gotcha.
right? Versus when you're using private money.
But it's like the city, it seems like this. You see this opportunity coming through. And let's be honest, it's more of an opportunity for people with money versus the lower income. Like always, we'll get the residuals, the hourly jobs and things like that. But if you have a process that comes through your city and it's displacing people, no matter how good, at the end of the day, we have to remember that we're dealing with people, and I feel like too many times that the money outweighs the people. So if you have a process that's coming through, and what if these people don't want it? They don't want to be compensated. My grandma lived here. Her great grandma lived here. What do we do about that?
That's a really good question. I wish I had the answer. Maybe I can do a little research and come back to you and get with you, because I don't want to just make something up.
Gotcha.
Okay.
And I respect that.
But I do not have the answer for that. But I will look into it.
Gotcha.
I do believe it will be. This area will be affected, but let's have another part 2.
Okay.
How about that?
We'll do that.
Okay?
I'm looking forward
and
to it.
I will have some answers for you,
Cool.
because I do believe it's something that the community needs to know about,
Okay.
and they can know what their power is,
Gotcha.
and what happens. So let's hypothetically say it does happen in this area. There'll be shops here. There'll be a transaction of finance, which is good. Right, because
Right.
those taxes go
It is.
toward this base here.
Right.
So I believe that when you bring things like that into areas, you're hiring folks.
But see, and I agree. But see, it's another side to it, because we are a management district in this area. We do have a management district, and we have the nation's #1 skate park here, and then we have the nation's #1 bike park being built here. Again, you've talked a lot about black and brown. We don't see many black and brown people skating, skateboards or bikes, and that money, a part of that money came from our management district. They agreed to that, just like they're funding a lot. They put forward a lot of money towards a police station that's being built here in Greens Point. But Greens Point has never had a community center. We don't have anywhere where the people can go for computer resources or job resources.
Well, you know what? That's going to be our goal then.
Gotcha.
That's okay.
Okay.
When I win this race, because I'm going to win,
All right.
we're going to work that out.
I'm
looking right at y'all. Everybody watching right now.
All right. Because
my word is my bond.
Gotcha.
We're gonna get that done because that's how we continue to do better.
Cool.
And let me tell you this, a lot of people don't. Everyone starts from somewhere. It doesn't happen overnight.
Exactly.
Right. If we want to play, if we want to have, my daddy always taught me this: whoever has the most money has the loudest voice.
True.
Now, that may sound really crazy to a lot of people, but if we want to play the game, then we need to pull it together.
Right.
Okay, we need to go to school. We need to do well in school. I know it may not be the perfect situation, but let's make the best of what we got right now.
Exactly.
Let's hold our politicians accountable to make sure the changes happen in the communities that we live in, right? And let's watch some gradual growth happen with us being responsible of the places that we live in.
Yep. Makes
and
sense.
some personal responsibility.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep.
It starts with us. I mean,
does.
we really, I passed the legislation. I didn't have a team of 20 people behind me.
Right. You did
As
that.
a matter of fact, most people that have surrogate children are embarrassed and not embarrassed of being a surrogate, but embarrassed of having to do and create their families in that way.
Right.
So it's very private.
Yeah, so they don't want to go public when something like that happens.
No, of course not. And I respect that. That's their privacy, right? So, but I still made it happen, and I'm not any more special than anybody else.
Right.
I just had a flame behind me and some fire inside of me.
Yep. And you pushed
and
it
be
to the
damned
end.
if we weren't gonna make it happen.
Yeah, and that's the mentality that we have to have, and
we
and
do.
and I agree with you. Part of it is the community. We do need to pull together, and because we're so broken right now, we're so separated and divided. We do have to pull together, and that's where it will start, regardless of what's going on outside of our communities, how our communities are being affected outside. Like you say, the reason they're able to come in and do these things because we're not here saying, look, if y'all gonna do it, this is how it needs to be done.
Or you got to get through us first.
Exactly. Yep. So I agree.
And know that we have some power behind us to make it happen. It just takes one person and then two people, and it's cellular.
Exactly.
Right?
I love it.
It really
I love
is.
it. Well, it was a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you for having me.
One thing I want to ask you before you go.
Okay.
Houston. When it comes to Houston, what is give me your 3 top local businesses that you like to frequent?
Okay, I gotta say Turkey Leg Hut.
Turkey Leg Hut. All right. Shout outs to Turkey Leg Hut.
We got to put that out there. Let's see. I love Sunshine.
Sunshine?
Yeah,
Okay.
Sunshine's the vegan restaurant.
Never heard of
Love
it. My wife
them.
would probably love it.
Oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so
We're going to have
good.
to check it out.
And let's see, what is the other, like shopping wise or?
Businesses, period. Any type of business.
Let's see what my other one would be. God, that's a tough question. I go to a place to practice yoga.
Okay.
It's called Big Yoga.
Okay.
And
that's local. It's not a
It's
chain.
local. It is not a chain. It's
Gotcha.
local. I love it. Love it. Love it.
Cool.
It's just really cool folks on a mat.
Cool. All right. So we
And it
have
smells like
turkey.
incense.
So we have Turkey Leg Hut, Sunshine, and Big Yoga.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Where can we find you in the community? Do you have anything going on in the community where we can see you, come out and listen to you speak, or volunteer for an event, anything like that?
Yeah. No. Definitely. So Plummer for Houston. So
Okay.
Plummer FORHouston.com is my website. We're gonna start putting some events on there.
Okay.
Coming up soon. I'm gonna do a pep rally,
Okay.
a political pep rally.
All right.
And what we're going to do is we're going to bring all the high schools, Madison,
That sounds
Worthing, and Willow Ridge, and everyone's going to wear their paraphernalia
Okay.
from like back in the day.
All right.
Right? And we're going to talk about politics, but we're going to have everyone wearing their high school paraphernalia, and we're going to do a political rally a little bit different than everybody else does.
That sounds interesting.
And have some real conversations about schools. and about how things have changed from when Grandma was there
Right.
and when we were there, and
Right.
have those conversations and how the city can make a difference in those communities. So that's coming up really soon.
Cool.
I am going to probably be doing a listening tour as well.
Okay.
I haven't put that up. All that kind of stuff will be on our website.
Okay. And
But,
that's
So Plummer for Houston,
Plummer for Houston.
PLUMMERFOR Houston.com.
Gotcha.
And yes, I need help. I need volunteers.
Gotcha.
We need block walkers, and this
Okay.
is a grassroots effort. So
Gotcha.
a lot of the candidates in the races are kind of moving inside out. And what I mean by that is establishment community. I'm moving it outside in.
Gotcha.
I'm doing community establishment.
Gotcha.
Okay, because these are the folks that matter.
Yep. And that's I love that I love that setup. So yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Thank
Again,
you.
it was great having you.
Thank
Love the
you.
information you provided. Looking forward to the part 2.
Definitely.
So
Definitely.
cool. Anything else you want to let
No,
the
I
people
just
know?
thank you for what you're doing. This is so good. Information is imperative.
Yes.
I think the way they keep us kind of in the dark is because we don't have access to information.
Right.
So you doing this is awesome,
Yep.
and I congratulate
Thank you,
you and
thank
your
you.
team.
Yep.
So keep up the good work, okay?
Yep.
Ask all the hard
Right.
questions.
Yeah, and I just give God all the glory and praise.
Yes,
I'm just
agreed,
being an
agreed.
obedient servant.
Yeah, no,
to be
agree.
honest.
But at least you're
Yeah.
being obedient.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
All right, no, it was so good meeting you. Thank you
Likewise.
so much for the opportunity.
Likewise.
I appreciate
Yep.
it.
Look forward to seeing you again and working with you. You know, to
Definitely.
push the things that you're looking to do out in the community.
Thank
you know,
you.
and that's whether. And again, we're gonna speak it into the existence.
Yeah.
You're gonna be in office, but you know, I feel like if you're setting yourself up for this position, you should already have the passion anyway. So, you know, win, lose, or draw, we should still push forward with everything that you know we feel is needed in our communities.
Definitely.
Yep.
Definitely. Well,
So
thank you.
You're
This has
welcome.
been
Thank
fun.
you. Yes, it has.
Okay.
All right. Have a great one.
All right, you too.
All
Thanks.
right.